Lawrence, as per the request of the team, we're diving right in. There's no more waiting, folks. We're getting right into the whole story behind everything. Lawrence, canceled flights. I know we're going to bounce around to a whole bunch of different things, and there's a lot that's happening. This is the holiday season. You know, there's been a number of people who've commented to me that they love the toque that I was wearing, and I appreciate all of the emails. Folks, thanks. You can always reach out to us. We love the shots, love taking them. But yeah, I loved wearing the toque that I had on. A lot of canceled flights out there. Everybody's trying to move around. Omicron is one of the big things. Every other variant out there, that's one of the big things. But have you heard the same story, the struggles of people now trying to move around?
Well, yeah. I mean, you hear it. My wife works for WestJet, so you do hear about, people canceling flights now because there's not enough staffing for those planes, right? So if it's Omicron is the issue, if it's the union's issue, I don't really know. If it's Christmas holidays, I really have no idea.
The rush is on, though. I've been hearing from a lot of people going, I don't know if I'm going to make it home. There's so many reasons. Half the time it was, are you going to be able to get a test in time? And all of the rules, right? Which rule are you following to get down to someplace down south or across the pond, or how easy is it to get back? But definitely lots of unique challenges. So folks, for all of you who are listening in an airport right now because you just needed something to do and you wanted to listen to the Squeaky Wheel, which we always appreciate under any circumstance, just take a deep breath and realize you will eventually get home. All of those people are not trying to make it harder on you. I assure you, they want to see you get home as well. So one thing too, Lawrence, just before we jump too far into it, I want to say a big shout out to the Blackfoot Diner. For a lot of you folks who are not familiar with Southern Alberta, this is an institution that's been around for a long time. The Blackfoot Diner is a beautiful little place just outside Inglewood. Recently, my dad and I had breakfast there. Well, he ended up thinking he had lost his hearing aids. That's what happens when you follow my father around. And when he went back, somehow he managed to get a flat tire. And I got to say thank you to Sherry and Donna who worked there, who were instrumental in helping get the fellows in the back to go out there and help George. Now, I get it, Lawrence. You're probably going to suggest, why didn't I go down? Unfortunately, I was in a meeting, was unaware, but these people took care of him. So if you get a chance, this diner has the trains running around above you. They've got it lit up like Christmas. They are very forward when it comes to ensuring that everybody's safety is priority. But I can't say thank you enough. So when you're in Calgary, folks, stop by the Blackfoot Diner. Look them up. Lawrence, let's talk a little bit about some of the Métis. I always like having this conversation. I know I'd like to ask you some questions about the Canada Archives, but this is this time of the year of celebration. So let's talk a little bit about the history of the Métis when it comes to how we celebrated at this time of the year.
Well, winters were always they called them the hivernants, and they would, move into the foothills, along with some of our First Nations that were already there. And we would kind of, work on pemmican, tanning hides, those sort of things. And then, I think the biggest celebrations weren't in the summer. It was always during the winter, during the off days when they weren't working the land, right? So they would have a lot of winter dances, and certainly from Christmas to New Year's was the prime, I would say, house parties they're probably cabins back then, but certainly a lot of partying that went on and ballrooms, I'm sure. And yeah, so, I mean, that was kind of their focal point. And then they would have New Year's Day. Those usually were the days reserved for presents and stuff like that, and stockings for the kids and whatnot. So, yeah.
I've had a number of people comment to me that they were surprised that it was the New Year's that was the celebration. Mm-hmm. Just assuming, right, that we all follow this, historic tradition of making Christmas Day that day. And yet, no, that's not necessarily been the case.
Well, I think Christmas was always reserved as that spiritual piece, that religious piece, and it was kind of reserved for that. And then the celebration piece, was something different, and presents and all those things. And I think maybe over time in our Métis communities, it's all on one day, just like everybody else, right? So,
well, most people would suggest that I try to get most of my work done in one day so that I could take the rest of the year off.
I mean, back then you did have a lot of time to waste, or I'm sure you weren't wasting it when you're chopping wood and stuff, but certainly Métis survival was a key aspect of a community staying alive. And all of us working together as one solid community to take care of each other. If, you didn't have enough wood, you brought it there, or food, you brought it there. You just took care of yourselves a little bit more. And hope we lost a little bit of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, all of the pandemic has created the challenge of gathering. And that's right, very historic for us. One of the things I wanted to ask you about was, this is the coldest. Somebody had commented to me the other day, or maybe it was today. Maybe it was my wife. I should write these things down. That 14 of the 15 coldest places in the world are in Canada right now.
Yes.
Let's talk survival. What did we do as a people when it got this cold and all you had was a couple of buffalo rugs and, a trading or a hunt house or a cabin to survive?
Well, I think there was a lot of naked hugging. I think that was a big aspect of it. Just kidding.
As soon as we get back together, Lawrence, and we're hosting that, folks, this is going to be Lawrence's contribution to our show. When we get back together, it's going to be practice the historic Métis naked hugging strategies.
No, I mean, it's just layer clothes. And, that sort of thing was just keeping a fire burning, all the time. You had to, but you prepared for that in the fall, right?
Right.
Before the winter came.
Isn't that interesting that that's something that our youth, and we talk about this a lot, trying to create that bit of awareness. Imagine that most of the time when the thaw happens, you're already starting to think, I better start collecting wood because I don't know how cold it's going to be the next year. And that's just something that is always on your mind. Right now, I imagine the only thing that's on kids' minds is Instagram and video games. Maybe what we should be doing is having them just go around, collect firewood, including us, Lawrence. Maybe we should be out there trying to do this as well, collecting firewood for the rest of the season, because you never know when you're going to need it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, harvesting season is always, at that time when you have to collect things and start to gather as much as you can to protect your family over the winter, right? Because the winter could be 4 or 5 months of severe cold, right? So.
And at the minus 55, I think that it was in a wind chill here recently in Alberta. Absolutely. That has got to be foremost on your mind, which brings me to to two things I wanted to hit on, Lawrence. The equinox that came about. And the reason I wanted to get there was because I was just reading an article and it was about and it's a confusing sort of way it's written, PIQSIQ. It's PIQSIQ. And these are these delightful Inuit throat singers. And they were making a comment about that as they were releasing a new album. I think it had a lot of Christmas theme to it. It's a very stressful time. And they were making comment about mental health and Indigenous strategies. And, my attitude of, and in there in the article too, you want to get your vitamin D, you want to keep your stress down, try and make sure you get your rest. Because we're not gathering the same way we used to, we don't get that relationships where we can talk to one another, be very supportive of one another. And it is a stressful time. And these, I've heard these throat singers before, and I think it was during one of the Olympics, though it's a very different style of music that I'm, right, obviously have any familiarity with. There's a strong cultural heritage within the Inuit community. So PIQSIQ, you guys look them up, PIQSIQ, they're delightful.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and if you are Camilla and Prince Charles, try not to laugh at the throat singers because everyone is watching, and I'm sure they don't live that down for sure.
I don't imagine they would because, that was probably something new that they had never seen before. But you're right. I do remember hearing about, I don't know if that was at an Olympic event or not, but these two were brought in. Yeah. And it wasn't Diana. You're right. It was Camilla who was there with them. But we just passed, I think it was around the time that we were filming I think we filmed our Christmas podcast just before. But yes, we are past the equinox. The days are getting longer.
Yeah. So, I mean, we get a minute every day or, every couple days. So, yeah, I think
it's 3 minutes.
Is it?
A day.
Okay.
Yeah. I need to look that up again, but we're not too far off. You're right. But just folks, whenever the stress is coming and that beautiful sun comes up, take 5 minutes to let it just delight your face. Feel the warmth. We're so lucky here in Alberta.
Yeah.
And folks, this is not a shot at the rest of you who are probably in rain right now, or in BC, rain and snow, or the absolute freezing colds in Manitoba or out east where it just seems like everything falls apart all the time and nobody can drive. We have that beautiful sunshine 300 days a year, and it is worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, I mean, I think BC has gotten it the hardest, I think, out of any province that's here. Certainly with the floods, to the fires, to, and they're dealing with the cold right now in Vancouver, and they're not used to it. And it's just, it's just this weather is wreaking havoc, and specifically in that province. So, shout out to them. I have a lot of relatives there that's certainly on a survival mode, and we all want to, get back to where we were before, and going over there and seeing family, but it's really hard on them, right? And you kind of send a prayer as much as you can to them.
Absolutely. The supply chain that they have to deal with, because that is where a lot of product comes into Canada, and just the unique challenge for all of us in Canada. Boy, they've certainly been getting beat up. And speaking of the provinces, I wanted to say a sorrowful loss to our Indigenous community, Candy Palmater. She was from the Eel River Bar Micmac in New Brunswick, is where she'd come from. Long history. She was 53. She passed away peacefully, is sort of what it was said. But she had her own show called The Candy Show. She was a comedian. But what was so, and I was watching a number of her episodes and her humor, and she is a stand-up comedian. Her quote, as she would describe herself, so that folks, you're not, throwing any barbs my way, was she was gay, Native, recovered lawyer turned feminist comic. And she was raised by bikers. And she worked for the Nova Scotia government as a lawyer. And I guess, the reason that she left law after so many years, I think, was just to pursue new life. She was even on the Trailer Park Boys. And I remember her as a character because she was very outspoken, very loud, she had a strong personality in her character, but a tremendous loss, for that community.
Well, I think, a lot of our Indigenous folks who, work in trauma, or people with trauma, do develop a very keen sense of humor, because you kind of do have to keep that lightness about you, right? In order to survive, because if you start taking people's problems with you and carry those burdens, it will harm you. So, we go through ceremonies, so we start to learn how to deal with that, not only within ourselves and our own spiritualness, but also to help us emotionally. And so to keep that well balanced, and, she probably had that sense of humor as a child and got into this to help people, and then realized that she just wanted to get out and really unleash that humor to everybody. So
I think that's kind of the nice term that you put there, unleash that humor, like let her personality come out. Yeah. Very sad, very, a tremendous loss for the community. Today's scam, folks, one of the ones I wanted to bring up, Lawrence, is at this time of the year, and what happens often when you have subscriptions. In this case, it's the Costco rebate scam. And folks, if you want to look some of this up, look up Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. They'll give you a lot of great information. But in this case, everybody loves a rebate. And Costco does, I think, mail out checks still that will arrive at your house. If you've spent enough money, you're getting a rebate for being a Costco member. Well, when you get an email, what's happening is they're saying, we want to send you your check, but what we need to, or send you your money. Well, who's not excited to read that? So you immediately click on the link, and it says, well, who do you bank with? Well, of course I want to deposit the money. They're going to need to know that. So you'll click, and it'll take you to what looks like your bank or banking information. Folks, don't go any further. All they're trying to do, these scammers, these threat actors, are trying to get you to put the information in. Now, whether or not you're putting in Costco information or banking information, a lot of us use the same passwords. If you do that, you put yourself at risk. And as I've commented before, folks, whenever you get the opportunity to use multi-factor authentication, which means Nobody can do any banking or any changes without sending you a text or an email to say, hey, is this you? As long as you're holding that device, you're much safer. So folks, do not give out that information. And if you have any concerns, reach out to the company directly and say, hey, are you trying to send me a rebate? And when they go, no, you just ensured that you protected yourself. And I know, Lawrence, you've said the same thing too. You hover over the email. Often there's a clue there when it says it was sent from blah, 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 .ru. That means it's coming from Russia. So folks, be very aware. Lawrence, nobody likes to get caught in these kind of stings. Nobody. And nobody seems to think it's a big deal until it happens to them. And we don't want to be a part of that. So this is how we reach out. Lawrence, I wanted to ask you, I was reading through the Canada Archives, and it's the library collection of information from the Government of Canada that you can go to. It's our library and archives of information. And there's, as you work your way through it in the virtual exhibition, there's the comment about the independent ones. Otapima Sawat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just butchered that word, but it's
wait, there's a letter in there that I don't even know. There's an E, but it has like a triangle above it. Okay, hold on. Take me through it.
Otapima Sawat, and that means the people who own themselves, the people who govern themselves. Yeah.
Oh, hold on. Take me through that one more time. Otapima Sawat?
Yeah, Otapima Sawat.
PIQSIQ. Okay, I'm gonna have to look up that.
Well, you're gonna have to get used to that because we're actually in our constitutional talks for the MNA, and we're changing the Métis Nation of Alberta name to Otapima Sawat government. So, yeah. Wow. So it's gonna be everyone's gonna have to learn that word, but that is called Otapima Sawat. And it means the people who own themselves or people who are stubborn. It's a Cree word, so it was kind of given to us because when Canada was encroaching in the West and we said, well, we don't want to be, governed by them. We're ourselves, we're our own government. Actually, it goes all the way back to the fur trade. So we didn't want to be governed by the fur trades. We wanted to be our own nation, our own selves, right? So that's the origin word.
Ah, okay. So that's sort of one we may have even given ourselves?
That was certainly gifted by the Cree to us too, for sure. But it definitely stands true to even this day. I mean, we certainly identify as Otapima Sawat people and, our own nation, our own self-government. And when Canada deals with the Métis, they're dealing with the nation and the government, right?
So am I going to have to start updating all the logos behind me? Because
no, yeah, that flag was around when we actually first established our own nation, and Cuthbert Grant said, hey, we are declared, we are Métis and we are our own nation, our own government. And that's when it all started in 1816. So that flag is actually symbolic of when we broke away from these forts and became our own. Yeah. That word.
I'm glad I came across this because then as I was, we talk about this a lot, and I'm the one who has to spend a bit more time doing the reading because you're so much more involved in it. But the one thing, I like this to also be the opportunity for education, not just all scams, but learning a little bit about our own connection with the community. But in the Constitution Act of 1982, folks, this is really, really important. Section 35 reads, Point 1, the existing Aboriginal and treaty rights of the Aboriginal people of Canada are hereby recognized and affirmed. Point 2, this is very important. In this act, Aboriginal peoples of Canada, including Indian, Inuit, and Métis people of Canada, the Supreme Court in Powley held that the Métis have full status as a distinctive, rights-bearing peoples, a characteristic they share with the Indian, First Nation, and Inuit peoples of Canada. You've commented a lot about Powley.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it was a Supreme Court decision, and it defined certainly those parameters in the Constitution. Did it really benefit the Métis across the other provinces other than Ontario? Well, that's certainly deciphered amongst us as Métis groups, but that was in 1982 when they were changing the Constitution or looking at that. They certainly had looked at the Métis and the Métis, recognition, what that actually means, and by including it in the Constitution now as of 1882, there's no I mean, 1982, there's no hierarchy. There's nothing, that says, you're the First Nations before Inuit and Métis. Like, we're all on the same level, right? Because we're defined in the Constitution as an Aboriginal group, right? And that was very significant to us because we didn't have that recognition since certainly the agreements, 1867, all the way till 1982. The Métis didn't really have recognition in really much in government, and that's when it first started. So that 1982, decision to include us was very, very vital to the Métis nation to keep moving forward.
So do you think this should have said distinctive rights-bearing people, and where you use the line last but not least? I guess the fact that they've just put us in there, as you point out, doesn't put anybody in order of how important they are. They are simply recognized.
That's right. That's right. And then, we didn't really have any defined agreements until certainly Daniel's decision in 2016, sorry. So there was so much time from 1982 even to 2016 where we weren't even involved in any federal agreements, right?
So that set the stage, but it was still 34 years later
right.
when the Daniels decision had come. And how long?
He was in court, I think, for 17 years. Yeah, 17 years it took. And he had put his, certainly the court to his son to continue the cause, to keep moving forward, because he knew he wouldn't, he would outlive it. Yeah.
And yet he cemented a history for the Métis community by, being the person who led that.
Yeah, and not only Métis, but non-status in this country too, because now they certainly are involved in that decision from the Supreme Court, but they certainly don't have the, how you'd say, people that are kind of representing them as a larger group, other than CAP, right, in Ottawa. But there's really nobody really representing non-status in this country. There is for the Métis, but for them, that's certainly something that they need to work on.
Yeah, folks, make sure you take an opportunity to hit this website if you want to learn a little bit more. I mean, you can look up Canada Archives, Métis. I'm sure it'll take you right there. But yes, as we learn more about the Otapima Sawat. Otapima Sawat. That's going to have to be on our show for the next little while until I nail it down, Lauren.
Actually, Leighton should probably put that in the subject line on this. And
that's fabulous. Leighton, if you hit that, try to throw that in there, the spelling. Though I'm curious to see if he can find that letter E with the hat over top of it versus just one of the accents. We'll see if he can pull that together. Some exciting things that happen as soon as Christmas finishes. World Juniors, Lawrence. We're going to move into sports because we can't really talk too much hockey because that all got shut down. The Raptors lost virtually everybody off their team and had so few players that they got beat up really bad the other day. But the World Juniors, and there's a fabulous lead up to that where there was a Cree artist, a young fella, he painted 150 sticks to be handed out for player of the game at the World Juniors. And they're beautiful, and they have a bear that looks like he's coming from the toe of the stick back towards, and it's meant to, exemplify strength. So it's an absolutely beautiful gift that's going to be donated, but they're having just as many problems as the NHL.
Yeah, I mean, they will. I mean, we're talking about young guys who probably want to enjoy Red Deer in Calgary and in Edmonton, and how are they going to do this, without violating some protocol? And I know the US have already done it and had to forfeit a game. So, I mean, it's just, they have to be extra careful. This Omicron is really affecting people in a very close contact situation, right? So it's definitely going to hit a team specifically because they're so close together.
I think it was Dr. Tam who had said, if you feel sick and you have any of the symptoms, what feel like a flu or these headaches, just assume it is. And nowadays, you don't even have to rush off to get tested because there's just too many people who are trying to go in and get tested. And they're just, she's suggesting just assume it is because it's rather virulent that 70% of the people who are within close contact apparently pick up this virus.
I mean, and they're saying, out of the total tests, 1 out of 3 has Omicron or COVID. right?
Wow. Yeah. And those numbers just keep going up. So folks, continue to do your part, because the USA just forfeited to the Swiss today. And hopefully we don't see more of those, because, hey, we love our junior hockey. We love supporting our junior athletes. And these young superstars are, trying to carry that energy to a little further in their career. And I'm really hoping that the women's hockey goes ahead, because their tournament was canceled. And I think they're looking at trying to reestablish it in February, from what I understand, unless it's a little sooner. It's either in Winnipeg or Ontario, who's suggested that they would be happy to host it, and love to see them out there playing as well, because again, it's all passion, it's all hockey, it's all good energy. And now I wanted to throw out a big birthday wish to Betty White, this matriarch of film, who's been so long into everything, whether it's TV, whether it's movies. And as she's turned 100 years old, they were asking her how she did it. And I love all the movies that she's in. I love the way she presents herself to connect with the media. And she said she always finds the positive in a relationship. She's done everything in her power. So big shout out to her. Big shout out to all of our junior athletes. Lawrence, I can't say thank you enough for the fact that when we have our conversations about the Canada Archives, you bring your history. I can tell that as we continue to move ahead through not being able to sit together, occasionally, folks, the system breaks down and we may lose Lawrence, and he can no longer pick him up when we lose his video or his audio recording. But in this situation, it's my opportunity to close it out. So folks, if you want to email us at tsw@thesqueakywheel.ca. Look us up at thesqueakywheel.ca. You can find us on iHeartRadio, iTunes, the Google Podcasts, the Spotifys. Make sure you look up our socials, our Facebook, look our Instagram. Folks, it means so much to us. I know that we have gotten to the point of, I think we've been heard 10,000 times from all the podcasts we've put together. We're still trying to check some of those numbers to see where we're at, because Lawrence and I have connected so much with our community. Thank you to all of our people who are behind the scenes. From all of us here at the Squeaky Wheel, from myself, Ross, the captain, Pambrin, and my very good friend, Lawrence, the President Gervais, who have a long tenure here as carrying the conversation from a Métis perspective. Thank you again. We really appreciate it. We wish you all the best and a happy new year. Folks, we're going into 2022, and let's go in there with a smile. Let's be like the buffalo. Let's keep our head down and continue to push through this as we continue to build strength. So from all of us here at the Squeaky Wheel, thank you, and keep the wheel squeaking. Best wishes. The Squeaky Wheel is brought to you by the Squeaky Wheel Company, co-hosted by the President, Lawrence Gervais, Meminay Region 3, and the Captain, Ross Memphis Pambrin. Our program is broadcast from Calgary in Region 3 of the Métis Nation of Alberta, which is part of the historic Métis Nation homeland. We also acknowledge these lands are the traditional territories of Treaty 7, Blackfoot Confederacy, Siksika, Kainai, Piikani, Tsuut'ina, and Stoney Nakoda, with whom we share this land on the basis of our historical and ongoing relationships. You can always reach us for comment about our programming by email at tsw@thesqueakywheel.ca, or find us on our website, www.squeakywheel.ca, and our socials. For our comments, it is our focus to recognize all of our First Nations and Indigenous friends, share connection with Métis settlements, and listen to and show respect to our Métis brothers and sisters and families. Here at the Squeaky Wheel, we give thanks to our elders for their guidance and to Mother Earth for her time she allows us to be here and share her bounty. From all of us at the Squeaky Wheel, Tansi.